Hey guys, welcome back to Love That. I'm so excited today about the episode you guys are about to hear, but before we get into it, I am currently on a plane, most likely, on my way back from Seattle. We got to go to Seattle for a week and hang out with some friends since we moved to California. We haven't seen anybody other than the people who regularly kind of come through California. California is kind of a fun place to live because of LA. A lot of people have to come here for work and we're like, we do not mind. Everybody come see us, please. We've seen some people, but a lot of our friends we have not seen since we left Seattle. So it was so fun to see them. And then we spent a few days out at the beach in Seabrook, which was so fun. It's one of like the best places on earth. And you guys should definitely check it out if you ever find yourself on the Washington coast, which is a random place to find yourself on, but you should definitely check it out. Anyways, before we get into the episode, we got to cover our what I'm loving today. What I'm loving currently is definitely Wheel of Fortune. It's so funny and random, but Wheel of Fortune has been like my stress-free show lately. I feel like I've been dealing with a little bit more stress lately than usual because of a lot of things going on in the world. And Wheel of Fortune really knows how to make a girl de-stress. And so I've been really enjoying joining Pat and Vanna and trying to guess the words on Wheel of Fortune. And honestly, I'm pretty good. And I think I am going to go on the show, or at least try to get on the show. So if you guys have any tips for how I can make my way on to Wheel of Fortune, please let me know. Or if you have some connections or something at Wheel of Fortune, please tell me. So Wheel of Fortune is what I'm loving. Definitely recommend you guys watch it on Netflix. It's like 15 minutes. There's no commercials. It's incredible. But today we have a very, very exciting guest, and this episode is kind of a long one, so I do want to get just right into it. We have Corbin Crosby on the show today. He is a true super fan of Love That, which is always fun when we have a fan on the show, and he's also one of my closest friends. He is the founder and owner of Jonah, which he will tell you all about how he started. And then most recently, him and his wife started Bleeker and Greene in Seattle as a screen printing business. And it has just been so cool to see the way that it's all come together and popped off. We talk about the journey of discovering what you're made to do, how you might think you're supposed to do one thing and it leads you to a completely different thing. Corbin has a very, very cool story, and there's a lot that I definitely found myself relating to, and it was just a really encouraging conversation, and he has a lot of really interesting insights. He did not hold back on anything before we recorded the episode. He told me nothing was off limits, so there were a few things where we went there, and it was super, super fun. Honestly, this is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. It is such a good listen, and I usually don't listen to my interviews more than once, but this one I was like, I am going to keep coming back for more. There was so much gold. So please, without further ado, welcome with me Corbin Crosby to the show. Okay, hi Corbin, welcome to Love That.
I'm so hyped to be here. This is my favorite podcast of all time.
Thank you. I honestly feel like you're like one of my number one hype people. So it feels so right to just have you on the show as one of the first guests back for the relaunch. I love it. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. It's so fun because I have like gotten to watch your journey as your friend over the past few years and like watch you just fully come into like what you're clearly literally created to do, which is so cool. But I feel like we have kind of a fun opportunity here to like take the listeners into that journey and talk about how you got to doing what you're doing now. And it kind of happened on accident, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It happened in Brooklyn, New York, which is my favorite thing to tell people, is that it started in New York, even though I hated New York. But yeah, it started in New York out of me trying to be a musician. And then it just kind of turned into me being a graphic designer, which then turned into me being into Jonah.
Yeah. So, okay, then let's walk through the process. You're in New York. You hate it.
New York. Hate it.
What are you doing? You're like, I'm gonna make music. What was like the goal in that moment?
Also disclaimer, I did hate New York, but the people in New York were amazing.
You're like my friends, I have to make sure they know.
Say that. Like, they are the coolest people ever. And I mean, a lot of them inspired me to do what I'm doing now. So I can't like completely discredit them. Or discredit New York, because they are like the dopest people.
For sure.
But yeah, so we started in New York. I am a barista at the worst coffee shop ever. It was just honestly awful. Just because the New York coffee scene is so wild. I worked coffee in Washington, and people are just so happy when they get coffee and they tip, and it's just great. And so I thought it'd be like that in New York. And oh my gosh, it was the exact opposite. People are so mean.
Yeah, no, so mean. Oh my gosh.
It was
That's
crazy.
Like surprising to me.
So I worked in like different shops. I would work like between Brooklyn and Manhattan. The Brooklyn ones like weren't terrible. They were just like crazy busy. But the Manhattan shops were always like finance bros and stuff. And they were so ruthless. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, that's what was happening. I was doing that. I was a barista and hating it. And I don't really even know. I think it was just kind of out of boredom. I have a music background. I actually went to college for vocal performance. And I did an internship after college. Actually, not after. I dropped out of college for an internship, and I was like leading worship, and got to New York and wasn't leading worship anymore, but still had that like desire to be a part of music. And so I actually went to Full Sail University and got an audio engineering certificate so that I can make my own music. And that was kind of the beginning of it. When you go to Full Sail, they have whatever program you start with, they send you a full, I forget what it's called, but it's like, they have like some like cool, catchy name for it. But essentially it's a box full of all the equipment you need to start in the major that you're doing.
Wow.
And so I got like a full like audio recording setup sent to me by Full Sail. And so just started making music literally in my bedroom. And did that I told myself I would do 5 like EPs, like short albums.
Which is no small feat in a year. Like that is a huge project to take on.
Yeah, it was so arrogant of me to set that goal. It was honestly terrible.
Yeah.
But so I'm doing that, and I think 3 EPs in, and just like honestly just over it, just like not really having fun, just doing it because I have nothing else to do and I want purpose in my life because the finance bros were so mean to me. And but then kind of at that point realizing that my passion was more so throughout this whole process. I have no money because we're living in New York and it's crazy expensive. And so I don't have any money to do artwork, don't have any money for content creating, anything. So I have to do it all myself. And at this point, I don't know how to do any of it. And so I get a bootleg version of Photoshop. Well, not bootleg. It was like the actual version. But I like figured out if I never closed the application, then the trial would never end. And so I was on a trial of Photoshop for like, honestly, like a year and a half. And then I had to update my computer. And so it closed out, and then the trial ended, which was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, you had to full send and actually pay.
I know, which it's honestly so expensive.
It really is.
I don't think anyone's talking about that.
I know, they literally charge so much. It's crazy, but yeah, beyond the point.
It's honestly crazy. And so, sorry, I'm kind of rambling.
No, you're good.
So
You're
early in
here
the
to
story.
ramble.
Great. It's going to be a super long story because I'm like 15% in. But okay, so I start doing all this stuff on Photoshop, and I don't know Photoshop. I don't know graphic design. And so I'm literally taking an album cover that I like, and then I'll YouTube exactly what I want to do. If the album cover has like red letters that like arch a little bit, I'll go on YouTube and I'll type how to arch letters on Photoshop. And then I'll just go and make that arched letter thing. And that's literally all I can do. But like after I keep making these album covers and keep making these things, I have this like Rolodex of like random Photoshop skills.
Yeah,
And
like the definition of self-taught, like not even taking a Photoshop class, literally being like, how to do this.
truly just single things. And it was like I would get people reaching out like, can you do this like graphic thing for me? I love your stuff. And I'm like, I literally can't do that. Like I have a very niche set of skills. But so yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing Photoshop, making the album covers. But then with Photoshop comes like social media promotion and content creation, which is like at this point, quote graphics and lyric videos and like quick little like 30-second like promos. And so I also get and this is middle, this is 2020. And so all these like different companies, Photoshop or like Final Cut and all the Adobe apps are all like giving away free trials because everyone's at home. And so I get the Adobe trial and I have Photoshop and Illustrator. And then I get the Final Cut Pro trial. And then I get the Premiere Pro that is a part of the Adobe. And so all these different things, all these different programs, I'm on these free trials and just learning how to do. And I'm just at home because at this point, my coffee shop is closed, which was like the greatest thing to ever happen to me. And so I'm on all these free trials and just YouTubing specific things to do. And from that, learning how to do literally everything, how to do Photoshop, Illustrator, how to make transitions on Premiere Pro, how to use effects and Final Cut, all these things. And then it just kind of got to a point where I was like, I don't really like music. I don't really like doing music, but all the things around music that I get to do is so fun for me. The album covers, the videos, the social media content is what I actually love doing. So I keep doing music. And then I get to the 5th EP and like in my head, that's like, I'm there, I'm done. I can retire. I can be good. Don't have to do this anymore. Release my 5th EP and then just full send it on graphic design. This is still in quarantine. I'm making literally more than I've ever made in my life on New York unemployment. And it was the craziest thing ever. I'm like literally living the high life. And so I'm, like full sending on graphics and video and just doing these things, putting them on Instagram. And it kind of gets to a point where I'm just like, this is cool. I can be like, I don't know, the graphics, the quote graphic guy on Instagram. Or I can like put them on a shirt or a hat. And that's kind of the beginning of Jonah.
Yeah. I want to like pause right here because I think it's really crazy that, I mean, you spent a lot of your life going towards something very specific, which was music, like with your degree and then getting the engineering certificate and like worship leading, all this stuff, like so much of your life was dedicated to going towards music. So I want to ask, like, was there tension in realizing maybe music isn't what I am supposed to do? Maybe music was supposed to be the thing that brought me to all of this? Or was it a really natural transition where you're like, yeah, I'm over that and like, no big deal? Was there part of you that thought, I can't go down this design path, or I'm giving up on the thing that I've spent so much time trying to make happen?
Oh, that is a great question. It was natural at the time that it happened, but it was because of that tension came a year or 2 years earlier when I moved to New York to be like the worship guy. Like I left the church in Seattle. So I was like, I'm gonna go to New York and like be the guy and like build this whole thing. And then I got there and they were like, and I wasn't the guy and it wasn't as like easy and I didn't get the opportunities that I thought I was gonna get. And so that's when the tension hit of dang, this is crazy. My whole identity was in that thing. And I had to have that moment at that point. But then from that point, fast forward 2 years, it's like I really haven't had that identity or I don't have really that tie or that like desire to be like, oh, I need to stick with this thing because I already had that moment of like, dang, I can't let that define or I can't let that be whatever.
Yeah. You kind of like went through the loss of like, this might not work. And then, so when it came time for you to decide, am I going to keep trying at this or am I going to move on and like go for this thing that I'm finding a lot of like passion in and excitement in? It was like almost easier at that point because you had already gone through that loss, you're saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's just like, I think it's really a cool thing because it speaks to so many, I think a lot of people who go through this kind of phase of thinking, I'm going to do this specific thing. I had a very clear career path that I thought I was on, like since I've been in high school. And when I got into that career path, I realized this is not what I want to do. Like I thought I was going to be in full-time church ministry my entire life, like dedicated my schooling to that at one point and just like had full scent on it, and then got into that space and was going hard at it and finally getting paid for it and giving all my time to it and realized this isn't for me. And that's what it took for me to like completely shift paths. And I think that a lot of people look at that as failure, but it's not. Like it's really cool the way that different things lead us to the things that are for us. And you can be on a path and it can be a path that you think is going to end up somewhere really specific, but it's at the end of the day, it's just the path. It's not the actual destination. Yeah. So I think it's like a really cool story, the way that you kind of dedicated everything to music. And it's what led you, because you needed to throw together some graphics to promote your music, to design. So at what point with design did it become like, now I'm in fashion, like I'm Jonah the brand? Or, you know, like at what point did it become more than I'm creating like my own content? And how did you know when you wanted to make this like your job?
All my life, I've always thought that being a freelance anything was like the ultimate dream, like the ultimate goal. And so like at this point, this is like mid 2020 and I've been doing this like graphic stuff and it's like kind of, I'm like definitely way better naturally at this than music. And I like, everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. It's obvious. And so I actually get this opportunity, which was like, if you would have asked me a year earlier, I would have said this was my dream job, dream opportunity. It was working for my favorite rapper as his design guy, his graphic design guy. And so at this point, this was doing his album artwork, doing all of his social media content creation, doing all of his, all graphic, everything, videos, promos, all that. And I'm literally like a month into it. And I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. I hate this. I hate working for this guy. He's super dope, but like, this is just not it. And so now I'm at like another crossroads of like, dang, I thought this was going to be the thing. And now I realize this is not the thing. I still love design, obviously, but there has to be another way. And that's when it was that moment of just like, might as well do this thing. All these graphics can, like, in my head, like, graphics are in a very, like, sit in a very specific place. And it's like, I can be the Instagram guy, or I can be the, literally there was only two things for me. It was like the Instagram graphic guy, or like design for clothes. And so after that kind of like goes, I stopped doing that for this guy in this like thing that I thought was my dream job. And I'm like, the only other option is clothing, putting these graphics on clothes and seeing what happens. And so I reached out to a printer in Brooklyn and just like see what the whole process is like. And to do my first run of hats, that was the first thing I was going to do, was going to be hats, because I loved hats. And to do this first run of hats, the minimum was 24 hats, and it would have cost, I think it cost $354. And in my head, this wasn't like logical, but I wanted hats, and I was like, I could either spend like $80 and like go buy some hats. Like, there's two hats I wanted specifically from Urban Outfitters, and they're both $40. So I was like, I can go buy these hats, or I can make 24 hats using my own design. And if I sell, if I sell 11 of these hats, then I'll be like completely in the clear. And that's all I need to do. And so I do that, make this first order, and put it on social media. And no one knows about like Jonah yet. Jonah's not a thing. It's just this random post of like, hey, I have these hats. Get them now at this website. Yeah. And they sold out in like, I think it was like 3 hours. And I was like, dang, that's pretty crazy for like, for me, that felt so crazy. But then also at that point, I'm like, okay, I made my money back, and I actually made, I think I made like $750 selling all the hats. Wow. And so I was like of profit? Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's crazy on your first run.
I can't just like, I know, that's not, and then it was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Like, this is unbelievable. I get to keep one of these hats. I don't have to pay for a hat. And I just sold all these other ones. Like, what am I going to do with this? And so then I was just like, let's run it back. It was a blue hat. And I was like, let's do it in black. And then I did it in black. And then I went from the minimum order of 24, and I got real cocky. And I was like, let's do 75, which there's literally no reason for me to ever do that. But we did 75. And then the 75 sold out in, I think, like a couple hours. And amazing. So then it's just kind of like snowballing. And then that's kind of the accidental full send of Jonah.
Yeah. It's crazy because it's like you have this very specific moment of realization of like, this is going to work. When you're literally selling something and it sells out in 3 hours, and even if it's 11 hats and you're doing way more now, but it's so cool that you can look back and know, even probably down to the hour, if you wanted to go back and look, this is when I figured out this was going to work. That's like such a unique situation and so, so cool. And that it was an accident. Like, it just makes me so excited. Like, I love it. But so, okay, then let's talk about Jonah now. Where is Jonah going? How did it get to where it is now? You're literally sitting in your own space, Bleeker and Greene. Like, did you have these dreams for Jonah from the start, or has it all kind of continued to feel accidental?
It's all been 100% accidental. And I think that's like my favorite part of Jonah is like people will, like you said, come into like Bleeker and Greene for like a pop-up or like random things for an event. And they'll be like, wow, this is so inspiring. Was this like your lifelong dream? And my favorite thing is that it was literally just like on November 10th, I decided that I wanted to do hats, and then I put the order in, and then I got them back on November 17th, and then I put them online, and then they sold out. And then on November 18th, I was like, oh dang, maybe I should do this. It's just been that over and over again. Even the place where I'm in right now, Bleeker Greene, I can't show you because it's so dirty. And my wife would be so mad if I showed it, but it was like another accidental thing. We had just moved back to Seattle, and I saw a post on Instagram that a guy in North Central Seattle area was selling his screen printing studio. And I've never screen printed a day in my life, but I was like, honestly, that'd be great for Jonah if I could just take all production in-house. I DM'd him, was like, hey, I'll take it. I want the place. And he was like, okay, like chill a little bit. Like you can come tour it and like, let's talk. And we get there, me and my wife, and we like tour it. And we're just like completely lying about everything. I'm telling about how I love screen printing and it's a passion I've had for such a long time. And this was just the golden opportunity. And he's like, well, great. Do you have financing in order? And we're like, oh, definitely. We have all the financing. And we literally had no financing whatsoever. And we're like, we'll take it. Like whenever, like, let's sign the papers, we'll take it. And it was just like let's do it. Let's figure it out. And it was just another one of those things that was like accidental, but like now all Jonah production is done in-house, and we do all of our hats and all of our shirts here. And then we also can print for others and other brands and other businesses. That kind of funds everything that we do for Jonah, which is crazy. And the fun thing about Bleeker and Greene is Bleeker and Greene so when I lived in Brooklyn, I lived on Seneca Ave, and the two cross streets were Bleeker Avenue and Green Street, or Green Avenue and Bleeker Street. And so that like the apartment in Brooklyn is where I learned how to do everything.
I love that. It's so cool. It's like such a full circle moment. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to know, because I think that there's a lot of people who, you mentioned like everyone asks like, have you dreamed of this your whole life? And I think there's a lot of people listening who are probably going to benefit from hearing about somebody who has discovered their passion, like quote unquote later in life. You're not that old, but you know what I mean? Like,
oh my goodness.
No. You know what
later
I mean?
in
like,
life?
Later in life, as in like not in freaking high school. Like
that one kind of hurts. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my gosh, stop it! How old are you?
28.
28. Okay,
so it is kind of later in life.
Okay, so like my listeners are like 18 to 28, and so there's like a group of people who are going to be listening to this who feel like they need to have it figured out right now. And I think it's going to be really encouraging for them to hear you have gone down these different avenues and are now finding your passion. You literally have this creative space that is yours, that you like are doing all of these things you never would have even thought about doing. And I think that is like so special. But I want to know, did you ever have like an inkling that like visual design was going to be a part of your life? Or have you always felt like you've had an eye for visual design, or has this really all come as a shock to you?
I think it has honestly all come as a shock to me. I've never had an eye for design. I've never desired to be like fashion designer is like such a hyped up version of what I do. Like
it is what you do though.
No. I think I'm literally a graphic designer with a great eye for graphics that go on clothing. But like fashion designers feel so crazy. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had that eye. I think it was just kind of, I mean, I guess it was just like deep in there, but I'm sure we all do like look back at like pictures of like things we wore or like things that we liked and it's like, yo, what was going through my head? And it's just, I really don't know. That is actually something I think about all the time of like, where did this come from? And I think it is also cool because it can always be evolving and growing. Like I feel like my taste level has grown as I've gotten into this. And now I think I have a great eye for it. And I think I have an elevated taste level, which is kind of a cringy thing to say, but I think it's just because taking that first step into it and like, you don't know what you don't know, but then once you're in it, it's like, oh, I do love color palettes, or I do love cursive, or I do love like whatever random thing it is.
The third grade font of cursive.
Yeah. I'm like honestly so obsessed with cursive right now. Everything I do, I can't write in cursive, and I just read Steve Jobs' book last month, and it honestly changed my life. And now I like pray like, God, please give me the taste level of Steve Jobs. Because that's like literally all he was just like, he couldn't do anything. And it always blew my mind. He like wanted all these things, but he like literally has no idea how to do any of this stuff. Like Apple is Apple because of his partner, who is Steve Wozniak. But like partner is crazy to say because Apple was only Steve Wozniak, and it was like Steve Jobs like looking over his shoulder like, no, let's do this, or no, let's make the case white instead of black, or let's do all these things. And I feel like my taste was elevated just like reading that book, and like praying like elevate my taste, or like give me a better vision for these things, or give me better eyes for these things.
I love that so much. I think that it's and that's kind of where I was going with like this idea that this kind of came out of nowhere for you, is that it's really cool that you can kind of just bump into what you seem to be like created to do one day, and have had no inkling or idea that this might be where you end up. And now it's like, it's your job. It's literally your full-time job, but it's also your passion, and you're like impacting so many people, and people love your clothes, and Jonah's all over the place, and it's just going to keep growing, and it's so amazing. So I think we're going to wrap it up here, but I always ask my guests what they're currently loving. So you already said the Steve Jobs book, so you're not allowed to say that. Is there anything?
Honestly, that book really did change my life, though. That man is crazy.
I know. I want to read it.
Also, I mean, side note, I didn't realize how like terrible of a person Steve Jobs was, and how like common knowledge that he was just like the most awful guy.
Really?
Yeah, he was so terrible.
I used to love Steve Jobs. That's actually the first like quote unquote celebrity. This like speaks a lot to the kind of elementary schooler I was. I think I was in elementary school when he died. That was the first celebrity I ever cried over dying. Like I was like devastated. Oh, I loved Steve Jobs as a kid. I loved him. It was super
like a Californian.
Well, I don't know if that.
So he's like your guy.
Yeah, I like really, really, really loved him, and was like devastated as a child when he died. I think I was in elementary school. I don't know, but it's funny now because I look back on it and I'm like, why? Like, why as a kid was I so invested in this guy? But I was glued to Apple keynotes. Like, I loved him. And so, and I, for years after, I would be like, Steve Jobs would never let this happen. Tim Cook this. I shouldn't say that because this is going to end up on the Apple Podcast app, and I hope he doesn't hear. But if Tim Cook is listening, I don't know how you got here, but I love you, Tim.
Love you, Tim. My God,
but
Tim.
no, like I loved Steve Jobs, so I want to read whatever book he read. But yeah, I don't think he's like got the greatest reputation of being a good person.
He doesn't. So. Also, I was listening. I'm sorry. I know we're trying to wrap up, but
no,
we started talking about Steve Jobs, and so I am.
Keep going.
That is my guy right now. Like I was like listening. I was like watching an interview from Steve Wozniak of like they were at this like huge event that Apple had, and they interviewed him, and it was like, the question was, what do you think Steve would think if he was here today? And it was like clearly positioned of like, wow, you guys did it. Like, this is so amazing. All these like different things. And Steve Wozniak was like, I think he'd be so disappointed, and he would be so mad at the direction this went, or like the way this went, or like he would think we're so behind. And if he was here, we'd honestly be like heads and shoulders above where we are now. And I thought that was just like the craziest thing to hear. But it's also just like crazy, like such a testament to Steve Jobs.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I'm gonna end my Steve Jobs.
No, we're going to keep going because I have a question about it. Right. We're going to get a little controversial here, but this makes me think.
I can't wait. Let's talk Lil Nas X too. I love him so much.
Okay, well, like that's what I was going to ask you is like, what are your thoughts on learning from and consuming content by and enjoying things made by people who have come out to be not necessarily the best person? Because I think a lot of people don't know what to do when they find out the person that they love is a bad person. What are your thoughts on it?
As an artist, I live this more than a lot of people, because there's no one I look up more to than Kanye West. There's no one more controversial than that man. And I'm sorry, I forgot the question because I was just so happy to talk about my love for Kanye West. But also, I've learned that I have to be like, also, I love him. And I think that he is like he's brilliant. Like when I was reading the Steve Jobs book, I would like read stuff and I'd be like, this is so crazy. Like I can't believe this happened. But like Kanye, we're like watching him do all those, like in 20 years, there's going to be kids, maybe like 50, a while down, there's going to be kids like reading about Kanye, be like, I can't believe he did this. Like it makes so much sense now, but I can't believe he did this. But then on the other side of it, I have learned that I have to be also like wise, and like I can't just always be going so hard for him, because he does struggle with mental illness, did some crazy things after his divorce, and I don't know the like extent of the abuse, but like if that's even like a thing, if that is true, then like you have to be like, I have learned that I have to be empathetic for the other side of things too, like as much as I love him. So same thing for like Lil Nas X. I love that man so much, but then I have to be empathetic that he did make like devil shoes. And they were honestly like OD. Like that was like way too much, but like I do kind of love him. And so Steve Jobs is one of those guys too.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance. And I think that you hit it right on the head. It's like you can still respect what somebody has created or what they've done, or even the fact that they quite literally might actually be one of the few real geniuses we have on earth right now, while also having to be aware that like, okay, I can't just defend this guy because I like him. You know, like I think about it like if Taylor Swift today did something just absolutely horrible, it's like my responsibility as a fan to acknowledge like, okay, that's bad. Yeah. But it doesn't take away necessarily all of the amazing things that she's done, or like the experience I have listening to like the art she's created or whatever. But it's a very like both and situation. I was curious what you thought because you're a Steve Jobs fan.
Yeah.
These days when I get really excited about somebody, I just Google like, is this person a good person?
I feel like most times the answer is no.
No.
Which is such a bummer.
I know. Like I literally I love Mark Cuban. He's my favorite billionaire, which is probably problematic that I even have a favorite billionaire. But
which I also don't understand.
Yeah. That's a whole.
I mean, I guess I understand it, but oh man.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's a both and. Like, you know, you got to respect like these people work hard. Jeff Bezos freaking changed the world with Amazon, and also Amazon can be horrible. So Anyways, but I literally now I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna Google right now if they're a good person, so I just don't get too deep.
Right now.
If I find out Mark Cuban
That was a hard
is
thing.
a very good
That's
person.
the hardest thing about being a Kanye fan. Cause like at any given point, he could be at both extremes. Like if you Google at some points, he's like literally like hosting a like church service in Calabasas. And then the next moment he's like decapitating his his ex-wife's boyfriend. It's like, this is so exhausting.
Yeah, it really is. It's hard to keep
his music
up,
video
sure.
is not him actually decapitating.
No. Yeah, of course. Just to be clear, we don't need any defamation lawsuits here. Like we're starting rumors like that Kanye West actually decapitated Pete. Yeah. Anyways, okay. I feel
like Mark's good though.
He is.
Does he have any troubling? It's just the fact he's a billionaire. He seems like a great guy.
Yeah, I think that it is the fact that he's a billionaire. I just watched a recent episode of Shark Tank where he and what's that other billionaire guy's name? I don't remember who it was, but they had like a guest shark on and they literally threw water in each other's faces and were so mean to each other. And I was like, wow, that's the worst thing I've ever seen Mark Cuban do because he's such a good guy. But yeah, apparently great guy. And I don't remember what sports team. I think he has the Mavericks maybe, but he owns. But he's like really well respected in the community, like very kind. Will stop and talk to you at a coffee shop kind of thing. So I hope I get to bump into him. Yeah, he's just like a good guy. Okay, well, we need to get what you're loving, and it can't be Steve Jobs' book. What do you love right now? It can literally be anything, even if it was like a food.
I love right now. Well, at the time of this recording, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers was released less than a week ago, which is Kendrick Lamar's new album. And I've literally not listened to anything except that for the past week.
I would recommend Harry's House, but I'm wondering, and then we can really wrap up. Like I could literally talk for hours about all of this stuff. I get so excited. But are you still inspired by music? Like, do you see music impacting your design decisions when you're like working on Jonah drops and stuff?
Kind of. I think my biggest thing is I love the way that music influences culture and creates culture. And I always wanted to be a musician because I always wanted to be a part of influencing culture and like being a part of that. But my streams just didn't reflect that. And so I was like, I gotta find something else. And so like now whenever I create things, like I'll literally like see the like new album cover and I'll be like, dang, how crazy would it be if he was wearing a Jonah hat? Or like, whenever there's like social content. So, cause it's like still wanting to be like, what's the best way for me to like lend my voice to like be in this conversation still? And right now, since it's not making music, it's like, dang, how can I get Kendrick Lamar wearing Jonah? Or like, how can I design something that puts me in that conversation or in those areas to where, like, am I creating things that Kendrick Lamar would wear? And that's what I think all the time.
Okay, so top 3 people you want to see in Jonah in 2022.
Ooh. This is like the Mount Rushmore talk, which I have actually often because my favorite thing is lists. But I think Tyler, the Creator, Pharrell Williams.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, and this is a new one, relatively new one that's never made any Mount Rushmore of mine, but I've realized recently that she's on the Mount Rushmore, is Kehlani. She's an R&B singer in Southern California.
Oh, okay.
So that would be my top 3.
Amazing.
Wait, who are your top 3 that you would like on your podcast?
Oh, switching it around. Top 3 people I want on my podcast: Olivia Rodrigo. I would love to interview Zane Lowe because he interviews everybody else.
Would that not be the most intimidating, nerve-wracking thing? I think he's like one of the greatest interviewers
Oh, he
of all time.
literally is one of the greatest interviewers of all time. I need to like study him. I would love to take like a class in Zane Lowe. I don't know why he hasn't, of all of the million cajillion courses that exist in the world, the fact that Zane Lowe isn't doing that makes me upset. I think it'd be intimidating, but I think that it would be like so fun because I always think like, how did he end up where he is, you know? Because I know like, you know, the basics, but I want to have like this conversation with him, you know?
Yeah.
So he's one. And then my third would probably be, my dream is that I'm going to be an interviewer that just doesn't say like, yes, and to everything. And so like my ideal would be that Kanye West is like me putting to the test. Can I really like disagree with somebody in an interview in like a classy way?
Yeah.
So that's why I want to do it. Okay. So anyways, those are my top three. Thanks for interviewing me, Corb. Well, let's tell the people where they can find you and when is the next Jonah drop.
You can find me online at Headband Corb on IG or Jonah the Brand. I try to do TikTok, but like I get no views and I get so insecure on there. But Jonah the Brand has a TikTok.
Scary
also.
Place.
I
TikTok
hate it
is
so
a scary
much.
place. Yeah.
That really makes me feel like I'm, what did you say earlier? Past my days?
No.
Later in life. I feel so later in life on TikTok.
Oh my gosh, you're never going to let me live that one down.
Never.
I didn't mean it
terrible.
like that. I just meant like beyond 18 years old.
Beyond young.
Oh man,
Old
I feel
F.
later in life and I'm 24. So anyways, okay. So Headband Corb.
Those things, yeah. Instagram
We'll
is
link
the
all
best.
of it in the notes. And then
big month for Jonah. We may be getting a second retail location. We may do a lot of pop-ups. We may do a couple street markets. We're going pedal to the metal.
I'd like to request a location in Southern California.
Great. I'm trying to move to Southern California. You also heard it here first. Just kidding, everyone. I can't say that yet. My wife will be mad I said that, but
you said nothing was off limits before we started recording, so which is like the best thing for me to hear. Okay, well, I'll link all of that in the notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Corb. It has been so fun, so inspiring. I think people are going to really love this conversation.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Love That. And thank you, Corbin, again for joining me today. It was such a rich conversation full of encouragement and inspiration. And we're all about that over here at Love That. So thank you, Corbin, for coming on the show. To my amazing listeners, will you please do me a favor fave? Will you rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, subscribe on podcast app or Spotify, wherever you prefer to listen? It really, really helps the show, and it's the easiest way to support the show. And thank you guys so much again for listening. I love doing this with you. You guys are truly incredible, and I just appreciate all of the support. Seriously. All right. Talk to you guys next Wednesday. Love you. Bye.